Arganisima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.arganisima.com. Arganisima, New York. Your beauty is our...
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, new day, new show, new topic. Your host, Hurricane H. And today we're going to stay and remain in the topic of innovation in the healthcare and the medical space, and specifically in the oncology world. And I have with me Chris Kent, who actually is the CEO of a company, Reveal Surgical, and what they're going to, he's going to talk to me about the specialty, and it's pretty innovative stuff that is state of the art. I mean, really, it's cutting edge technology that is still in progress, and they're working on it to be live in the community and in the healthcare system in the months to come. So I think it's an opportunity for a lot of folks listening, watching, to know what's going on and what's available in this particular area of oncology. I mean, oncology is a big deal. Cancer is something that we live with day in, day out in the world today. And anything that we do to improve, I guess, the ability to survive and the ability to cure and the ability to detect and do all that stuff is important. So today is really a very interesting and hot topic that we can definitely benefit from. So Chris, without any further ado, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Well, same here. And I know that you're going to give us a lot of juice, a lot of good insights about the whole concept, behind the company and why and how it is going to work and how is it going to benefit, how is it going to work in the marketplace and all the next steps, before it's actually real. And I'm talking real, meaning in practice. And that's about it. And then we'll take it from there. So first things first, as always, I always ask the question about a little bit of background of you and the company, and then we can go from there.
Sure thing. Yeah. So Reveal Surgical actually started out about 5.5 years ago now as a company called ODS Medical. It was sort of our generic name that we kept for a while we were in stealth mode. And it was a spin out of two universities here in Montreal. So clinical work that was being done at the Montreal Neurological Institute, which is part of McGill, or the English university here, was married up with some really cutting edge work that was being done at the physics university, École Polytechnique, which is on the French university side. So my two co-founders are Dr. Kevin Petreka from the Montreal Neurological Institute, where he's the chief of neurosurgery, and Dr. Fred Leblanc, who is at École Polytechnique. And they were working, in their academic practice, looking for ways to augment brain tumor surgery specifically. There's a real challenge in brain tumors, which is that, brain tumors, unlike a lot of other solid tumors, don't exist as sort of a single contiguous mass. They really, diffusely invade into the otherwise healthy surrounding tissue, and that makes it really challenging for surgeons to kind of know where the cancer ends. And because it's the brain, you can't just cut out an extra 2 centimeters and call it a day. So they were looking at a range of different techniques to really improve the safety and the precision of these procedures. And they, tried a bunch of different approaches, but one approach that actually has been around for a very long time, but had been, problematic from a clinical perspective for a long time, was something called Raman spectroscopy. And Raman is a way to kind of take a molecular fingerprint of tissue. Basically, you send in a monochromatic light, so a single wavelength of light, and some of the photons in that light will interact with the molecular bonds present in the tissue. So when you collect the light that comes back, you can sort of detect that pattern of interaction based on wavelength shifts, and that gives you that fingerprint effect. And so then when you train that against that can give you these models, which you can then train against pathology samples taken from the same tissue. And then that allows you to develop an AI that gives you sort of real-time diagnostic information. Now, they didn't quite go that far in the lab, but they did do an early pilot study with 20 or so patients at the MNI, and they saw some really, really promising results. And I happened to be working in Kevin's lab doing other things. I was actually more on the life sciences side. So my PhD is in molecular neuroscience and looking very carefully at the signaling pathways that drive cancer invasion, and had been working on a number of drug targets for brain tumors. And I had some previous entrepreneurial experience. And so when Kevin and Fred kind of were getting these really exciting results, they brought it to me and said, well, we're not quitting our jobs. So, and I was like, wow, okay. I mean, it was really the worst time ever. I was about to have my second child. We needed to renovate the house. I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to have to do this. But really the technology looked so promising, and the chance to make such an incredible difference in the outcome of the treatment of these patients. I looked at this fairly carefully for a couple of weeks and then said, yeah, I'm all in. Let's go. So we started the company then, and we were off to the races. A few months later, we had our first checks in the bank and made our first hire, and got moving.
Wow. Well, first of all, this is impressive because we're talking about a very sensitive, type of cancer, and there, you are at the verge of almost cracking a whole new level of technology to really make a big difference in the world, and also in the early detection, or at least the definition of where those tumors can be, and certainly surgically be able to do better work and ultimately
Absolutely.
better results, and therefore better lives saved, and maybe more and more, better motor activity from the folks that actually undergo the surgery. So it's really something that I'm very actually, I'm so happy to hear that this is something that's working. I mean, for the longest, we've heard about obviously MRIs and CAT scans, and they do the job, but I think this is the next level.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and that was really the inspiration behind the company, which was that we realized, MRI, which is the workhorse of surgical oncology, both in neurosurgery, but for lots of other indications, is incredibly powerful. But it's ultimately a physical contrast imaging technique, right? So you're seeing these physical disruptions to the tissue, but cancer is a molecular and cellular disease, and so the thing that the surgeon is missing in the operating room is that molecular level of information, that molecular data, and that's the beauty of Raman spectroscopy, is we're actually able to build a proxy for those molecular changes that are happening in the tissue, and provide them with real-time information, which they can then act on, depending on the context and whether it's surgically warranted. And what's amazing is that it doesn't rely on any sort of labels or molecular agents. So it's very flexible in the types of questions that we can ask for the model. So that means we can use it in a lot of other cancer types or other tissue types. And so depending on the needs of the procedure, we can ask questions like, is there cancer here or is there not? But we can also ask from the same data, what kind of tissue is this? Is it gray matter? Is it white matter? In other contexts, we can see, is this prostate tissue? Is this nerve tissue? Is this bladder tissue? So we can really give surgeons, a lot more information in real time at the sort of, millimeter to submillimeter scale that they need in order to make these very precise, informed decisions. And as you said, I think that really opens the door to taking these procedures to the next level. And that has really important knock-on consequences for sort of the whole continuum of care, right? Because a better surgery means that, you can have a better chance of effective radiation treatment and effective post-surgical chemo. It really allows those important interventions to do, the best job that they can, and overall kind of improves the outcome for patients. So we're really excited about being able to make a difference to these patients' lives.
it's not every day that I come across people that are actually working towards the next generation in surgery or any innovative, technology that can help live. And again, you mentioned something about better chemo or radiation, but really also when somebody is going through less trauma, I guess, and it's precise enough, they'll have probably better, I guess, odds of doing a better outcome in terms of their own physical aspect and movement and whatever
Absolutely.
the area that you're touching, it's going to be a whole different level of.
No, for sure. And we are very conscious of that. The technology certainly has the promise for finding more cancer cells, and that's very exciting and has a lot of potential. But what's equally as important is actually knowing millimeter by millimeter where there isn't cancer, and the ability to leave healthy tissue intact is, especially in neurosurgery, just as important as finding as much cancer as you can safely remove. And so that is very much, an equal part of our mission, and to minimize the side effects that happen because of damage to otherwise healthy tissue. And so, we're quite excited to be able to deliver kind of both sides of that coin.
Well, that it's awesome, and again, you are really doing great work here. And one thing that you mentioned, this is not just for brain surgery. This could be any surgery, basically, right? At any level where there is a cancerous, molecule or some sort of a.
For sure. I mean,
yeah.
we've explored a number of different tissue types and a number of different cancer types. We have yet to find one that doesn't have a sort of Raman signal that we can exploit. So that's very encouraging. That's very helpful. What is, I think, very important from a product development perspective or a commercial perspective is to understand how that information is used in the context of that particular procedure. So while the technology we're building is more or less identical in these different indications, the use of it is actually quite specific. And so, as I was alluding to before, we take a single type of measurement, but from that measurement, we can ask a whole bunch of different questions. And so finding the most kind of high value information to provide to surgeons at the right time and at the right place is where we spend a lot of our time and effort. So, it's not just a matter of kind of, here's the probe, go knock yourself out. We really have to tailor the use of the technology to the sort of the value case of that particular procedure. So for example, brain tumor surgery is primarily an open surgery. It's a very heavily pre-planned surgery, as you can imagine. And so we've looked for opportunities to marry our technology with other sort of surgical planning technologies that allow the surgeons to kind of make that cancer or no cancer determination in line with their preoperative plan, and to check that against the sort of positioning against the MRI in real time. But in other procedures, such as prostate cancer, we're asking a slightly different question. So yes, we're looking for extra cancer, and we're looking for cancer that has maybe left the prostate. But the goal of that procedure is actually to fully remove the prostate itself, and for good reason, because the post-operative monitoring that's based on PSA levels can really be kind of messed up if the surgeon leaves behind prostatic tissue. And so what we're trying to do is also give the surgeon an ability to ensure that they've fully cleaned out the surgical cavity, and that they're not leaving any prostate behind, because that could lead to elevated PSA levels, which in turn can be treated as what they call biochemical recurrence, even though there's no cancer there. And these patients are receiving unnecessary chemo, unnecessary radiation. And so the ability to make that kind of impact is often, just as important as finding extra cancer.
Thank you for that clarification. Well, I just personally, I mean, I have been I guess afflicted with prostate cancer through my father, and he passed on, with that. So I am all for any technology that can prevent this from happening to other folks. And certainly, you're right. The idea is that if there are cells that are left behind and they're still there, they can certainly, just basically jump up to a healthier tissue next door, and then
No,
that's when it
absolutely.
metasizes and it's over, right?
Yeah. So
Uh,
no, and I'm I'm very sorry to hear about your experience, but it's very common, and it's it speaks to the need for new technologies. And a lot of times these extra readings, sorry, these extra cells are not discovered until days, months, days, weeks, months after the original surgery. And so often patients are having to go back in for second or third surgeries. And that is another sort of big thing that we're trying to avoid, by delivering the cleanest, most effective surgeries the first time round. It can greatly improve just the whole patient journey.
what about like ovarian cancer and things like that? I mean, because
Sure.
I think they operate almost the same, prospect here, because it's the same concept. If your uterus is removed, you have
Yes.
to clean up everything around and make sure there's no. So I guess it applies to all different levels. Just
It,
like to
it,
your point, the data may be different based on where that
It
cancer
is, yeah,
happens to be.
and no, and certainly, as I said, we have looked at a number of different tissue types. We through our co-founders academic group actually did an early study with a hospital in Ottawa here, looking at the potential for using this in ovarian cancer, and definitely saw some promising results. It's definitely on our hit list. We're still a relatively small company at this stage, so we're about 20 full-time engineers, and we're very focused on getting that first product out the door. But we have a long list of potential applications kind of once we're across that threshold. So
Well, listen, I mean, keep up the good work there. I mean, there is a need, and there's so many options out there and so many problems that are happening with cancer. And unfortunately, the more we can do to solve some of these problems and help people, that would be the best, right? So it is a combination of I guess hardware and software. I mean, you mentioned something about AI.
absolutely. Yeah, it's a full system. So, I mean, the way the product, our first product, which we're calling the Sentry system, is designed for use in brain tumor surgery. And effectively, what it is on the hardware side, it's a cart-based system with a handheld probe. It's an optical probe. It basically looks like a very fancy pen, very comfortable to use. The surgeon uses that directly in the surgical cavity. He contacts the tissue of interest, and the cart basically uses the probe to deliver the laser, make the measurement. So the laser is delivered to the tissue, light is collected, that comes back to the cart, and that's where the signal itself is detected. But once that signal is detected, in order to turn that into useful information, that's where the AI comes in. So you compare that signal to the models that we've built up, having acquired data in, at this point, over 100 patients. We have thousands and thousands of samples that we've based our AI models on. And so we can compare that single measurement that the surgeon's doing live in their surgery to those models. And then from that pattern, we can decide, is there cancer there or is there not? And we give that result right back to the surgeon, and all that happens in like a second or two. So they're really able to get this real-time information as they're interrogating, sort of millimeter by millimeter areas of extreme interest. So the software component is equally as important as the hardware component, and it's really this marriage between the physics and the signal processing that we're able to unlock this value.
So I mean, Reveal Surgical. I mean, it actually reveals exactly what's going on during surgery. So I think the name really,
Absolutely.
is now you can see the value of that name more as we describe it, in more details. And it's amazing. I mean, because it's as simple it is, but it's really as robust as it gets.
Yeah, well, and that's the funny thing. I always joke that, like, we have the most underwhelming demo. It's when you see the finished package, it is incredibly simple, right? I mean, it's really basically just this handheld pen. You put it on something, and like 2 seconds later, you have the answer. It just pops up on the screen, and so people are like, "Wow, that's magic." And it is. It feels like magic. I mean, it's absolutely incredible when you see this, happening in real time. But that comes with a lot of danger, because while it looks and feels like magic, the potential is definitely there for people kind of not to trust it. This is visually to the eye nothing but a squiggly line, and so how is it that I'm deciding whether there's cancer or not based on the squiggly line? And so we've actually gone a long way to working with top surgeons across the globe to develop these data sets. They're super vetted, but even the information that as it's being presented on the screen while the surgeon is using it is is accessible. We're not building a black box. So we try to give them access to as much information as they need in order to make their decision, and in order to sort of have them build trust in the machine so that they can see exactly what it's doing. And also we're keeping, as they say, we're very much keeping the human in the loop, right? Our goal is not to supplant what the surgeon is doing. We don't pretend to be experts in the procedure. What we can do is provide additional data and allow them to use that data in the context that they need it. But in brain surgery, as in just about anything else, context is absolutely critical. And so we leave the determination as to whether to resect that tissue or to leave it alone. That's really up to the surgeon. We're not telling them what to do. All we're doing is giving them that additional information so that they have a better understanding of the tissue that they're encountering.
Well, thank you for, again, clarifying that. The surgery, any surgery, we know it's very dangerous. There's no doubt about surgery, right? And this particular technology is happening in real surgery. I mean, the person is under, anesthesia. They're already in the operating table, and they actually under, they're gone and they're working on them. So, and I know a lot of times, and this happened. I give you some real stories, but even with my mom, she had a surgery, and it was just for gallbladder, but they removed it, or they removed some of it. But at the time, we thought it was going to be bad. They fixed it and all that, and there was some challenges that we found out later on. But the end result was that the fact is that when you open someone, there's always discoveries that happen there that you cannot predict before.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and now look, we've used for brain tumors, we've used our system now in hundreds of surgeries, in investigational contexts, and there are still to this day surprises, in all the different hospitals that we've been using this in, and all the different surgeries. A lot of times the surprises are not related to our system. They're other surprises, but they're ones that change kind of how we use the system and how we approach the collection of data. And so our data sets are designed to cover almost every sort of variety of brain tumor. It won't necessarily, the first product won't necessarily be cleared for all that, but definitely the data that we're collecting is designed to cover that. But even then, we're sort of finding new variations on these themes. And so certainly once you can have the best plan in the world, but once you open up the patient and get ready to go, it's anybody's guess as to what's going to happen. So.
Well, Chris, that's exactly why I brought the point, is because what I want to highlight on there is that you can have a pre-planned surgical plan when you open up, and now you have different things that you have to deal with. Your technology is actually more accurate because now it's working in real time. After you discover whatever it is, now you can really do more. So my point is that you guys are gonna make it a revolution here in the industry of surgery.
100%.
To make it work.
There's actually even, this is something that's very specific to brain surgery, but this is very true in brain surgery, just for the simple reason that the MRI is a picture of the skull closed. And the second that you open that skull in order to get at the brain tissue, everything moves. Yeah. And so you're already off your plan. The beauty of our device is that it's directly contacting the tissue. So it doesn't matter where it's moved. Like you are sampling exactly the area that you're about to, either take out or leave alone. And so this, what they call brain shift, is it removes that from the equation, and there's very few other technologies that can kind of make that claim. And so it's very much designed to roll with the realities of the operating room.
Listen, there, I don't think you're right. I don't know of any technology that can do that. I mean, once you're in there, what you see is what you get, and you have to be able to make some moves right there. And sometimes, if there is no technology that assists, you're still gonna have to guess and try to feel. But this is actually precise to your point. You can go beyond that tissue. You can also get that information from the AI that is real time. Now you're talking about split second, information that is given you right now. Yes, no, maybe, do. So this is like, I'm telling you, it sounds like the next, age of surgery.
It
And
is. Yeah. I mean, that's really the mission of our company. Like, we see our job is really to help usher in this kind of next wave of data-driven surgery. The beauty of AI is that it's effectively collaboration writ large. Like you build this system that collects data, on an ongoing basis, and it benefits from the experience of every surgeon that's ever used it, right? So the more systems that we get out there, the more cases that we do, the more data that we collect, the better the system gets. It's basically a product of a unsaid collaboration between all these different users, and that is what medicine should be. I mean, that data-driven medicine is really based on the idea of follow these specific protocols, collect the data, and everybody can benefit, everybody can improve their practice on the data-driven decisions that are being made. And so we really try to encapsulate that in our approach to building the system.
Thank you. And by the way, that it just listening to you right now, I'm very optimistic about, and I know you are. I mean, you wouldn't be running this and excited about it, but for people listening, I mean, just know what this can mean for a lot of people, right? And just to ease their minds, right? I mean, you've been trying, testing, and working, and still testing, and still working on it, and it's a very, very long process to really make it to the size. And surgeons are the best of what they do. I mean, you have to be top of the of the percentage of providers in general to be able to do surgery, and expertise in there is high. And they still have to practice on these things. So when technology comes in, it's really something that they learn. They have to get familiar with, to make sure that they understand it. And so anybody that's listening right now, know that when this technology is going to be live, these people are going to know how to use it. They're going to be expert at it, and they're going to be able to get the best out of it.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, it follows a very rigorous development process,
Sure.
and it's years in the making. As I've already alluded to, we've already used this in hundreds of cases. We've collected thousands of data points from these cases, and it's subject to a very rigorous process, through FDA and other regulatory agencies. So, and we're still not finished. I mean, we are with our brain tumor work, we're beginning to sort of approach the final stages, where a lot of the engineering work has been done. We're starting to finalize kind of the design of the system. We're anticipating moving that system into our final multi-stage pivotal clinical trial, hopefully by the end of this year. And that'll be a trial involving 160 different patients in over 10 hospitals with some of the best surgeons in the U.S. So it will be very, very, very rigorously assessed before it gets out onto the market. But we're pretty excited to see how it's performed so far, and that's the beauty of the way the system works, is it only gets better from here. So.
Well, excellent. And you did say 5 years already in the making, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No.
That's a lot of time, testing and tweaking and making sure everything is good. And, at least 100, you said, test subjects that actually have been, assessed. And so in that same realm, I mean, do you have any statistics to share with us in terms of what would be some of the successes, and some, maybe the improvements that, the technology has, been almost proved, real and,
Sure.
and happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we have three ongoing pilot studies right now. Actually, one that just wrapped up. So we have one here locally in Montreal, where we're based. We also have an ongoing pilot study at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. as well as the Medical University of Vienna in Austria, and that's the one that just wrapped up. The one that just wrapped up, that was a really interesting study where they were looking at the power of the system to find these very diffusely invasive cancer cells. And it showed a pretty significant increase in the sensitivity of the system to finding these invasive cancer cells as compared to a fluorescent label that's commonly used called 5-ALA. And so those results were shared at a recent meeting called the Congress of Neurological Surgeons in Texas back in October. And then our other two sites actually are collaborating on a publication, and they're going to be presenting their results in an upcoming meeting called the AANS, which is the American Association. I can't remember exactly what the acronym is, of neurological surgeons, and that'll be in Philadelphia at the end of April. But in a nutshell, what they're going to show is that looking at different tumor types, so different brain tumor types, our system can identify the tumorous tissue or cancerous tissue with accuracies ranging from in the high 80% up to like 95, 96% accuracies. So very, very robust results. And what's even more impressive is that when we take the results that were obtained from one center and then try to examine data that comes from the other center, so different system, different surgeon, we can reproduce those results on the different systems. So this for us are the sort of the key indicators to show that the technology is approaching the end of the development, and it's getting ready for prime time. So we're quite excited to move ahead. As I said, later this year, we're right now in conversations with the FDA, trying to get the study design agreed upon with them. And then once we do that, we should be in shape to launch the trial, as I said, hopefully by the end of the year. So,
wow. Well, listen, that's exciting news. And again, it sounds like based on the studies already, it's pretty consistent. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be in all the environments. To your point, different folks using it, they all using it equally, and the results are definitely better than the current, process that they have, or at least procedures or tools that they use today. So you already proven that it can do better, and that's at the bottom line to anything. When you have an advancement or an innovation or something, or an improved procedure or process or tool, that's really the bottom line, and you're there.
Absolutely. And, what was amazing to hear for our purposes is, the study that just wrapped up in Vienna, that was 4 different surgeons, all from the same hospital, using this device across a number of different cases. But the feedback was amazingly consistent. And, they came back and told us, like, we never want to do another case without this. This is fundamentally changed the way that they approach the procedures, and they're getting so much more value out of it by having that alongside of a lot of other tools that they bring to bear. But it has become an essential piece of their toolkit. So.
Well, listen, surgeons are going to be all over it, because this is going to make their life, much better, and the success rate even better. And that's really what they thrive for. And that's really the bottom line. I mean, again, means better lives, healthier lives, and less, prognosis and, follow-ups and other types of things that can happen. Right.
Yeah.
So for our audiences, it took 5 years to really prep and get this stuff and done. And now you're just about to go into the FDA, or at least you're in discussion with the FDA. So what will be the next stage or next process for this to actually really become a reality and just spread out and be able to be in the marketplace?
Yeah, so the next steps really is this multi-center pivotal trial. Assuming that the agency agrees on our design, or we're able to come to a design that sort of satisfies what they're looking for. We are looking to then roll out systems across at least what we're thinking will be about 10 hospitals across the U.S. We'll be doing about 160 cases across those 10 hospitals. We'll be collecting data to show that the models, work and work to the degree of accuracy that we expect it to, and that the procedures are safe, that we're not adding any additional risks to the patients. And once that data is collected and established, we'll be submitting for FDA approval. So.
Excellent. Well, so one question that probably people will be asking, and I think even hospital systems, and is the cost of the utilization of the service, and what's the impact on that, especially in insurance world and other things. Everything that's used is billable, and therefore that can be a challenge
Sure.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So what's the take on that?
So, I mean, the cost there's kind of two key components to the system. So there's the base cart system, which would certainly be a capital cost, and then there's the probes themselves, which are used for 10 surgeries, and then they have to be disposed of because the integrity of the fibers can't be guaranteed after the sterilization that it would have to. It's very rigorous that it goes through between each case. And so once those probes have hit the end of their lifetime, they need to be replaced. So there is some ongoing cost. Our goal, we haven't settled on a final pricing. We're not quite there yet, but our goal is definitely to make this very competitive, cost competitive. And the idea would be that it would add less than 10% to the overall cost of the procedure, and that would be well within sort of the reimbursement margins that most centers have on this type of procedure. So the goal is really that by using these technologies, these centers are going to be incurring a little bit of upfront cost, but that ultimately that cost will pay benefits in terms of the outcomes to patients, as well as savings in terms of the reduced need for repeated procedures.
And for the insurance, that's music, because
Sure.
you'll pay less than 10% extra, but you'll have less cost for hospitalization stay and follow-ups and other procedures, as you said. And
yeah.
So that's pretty good. Have you met with any of the payers while you were doing your I guess?
So we haven't directly, although we are working with a potential commercial partner for the ultimate release of the system, and they have extensive experience in working with payers, both private and public, and so they've been able to provide us quite a bit of insight into sort of the market dynamics around this, and how this would fit within sort of the existing reimbursement landscape. We are also what's called a breakthrough device designation at FDA. So they did have this breakthrough device program, and we were given that designation. There was a rule, the MCIT rule, that was passed, although it got recently stricken from the books, that would have actually provided additional reimbursement to centers adopting breakthrough devices such as ours. Unfortunately, that has been removed, and there is still talk of potentially revisiting it down the road, and we're optimistic that rule will get back on the books. We think that's really important for a number of reasons. Obviously, for ourselves, it will be an important piece of the puzzle to ensure that as many hospitals as possible are able to adopt this as quickly as possible. But I think more broadly speaking, for the industry, it's quite critical that signal is there, that payers are willing to incentivize new technologies to come along, and become value add. It's not, I don't think it's necessary to pay for all the latest bells and whistles on everything, but when new technologies do come along and they are improving patients' lives and they are providing value back to the healthcare system, that incentive needs to be there. And so certainly having a rule in place like the MCIT rule is extremely helpful for startups such as ourselves, the people who are working on these new technologies and pushing them forward, and taking on significant financial risk and trying to be innovative and break new ground. One of the biggest challenges we have is, as you probably would imagine, is finding funding. And one of the main reasons for that is because there is such a constraint on healthcare spending, and so there's a tremendous amount of reimbursement risk. And so having something like MCIT in place to kind of mitigate that risk a little bit, it has knock-on effects, especially for early stage startups, and allows them to point to mechanisms by which they can get paid and realize a return that can go back to their investors. So it was a little disheartening when that rule was struck down, but we're optimistic that something like that will come back into play. So,
well, I hope so too, and hopefully things will be smoother. But you will prevail. It's going to happen. It's timing, I think.
Yeah.
So well, first of all, you've mentioned, I mean, some key hospital systems out there, and you're going to be testing it again in larger services. So once all these entities actually have really vetted out, and that gives you also a nice little testimonial piece that is important, and and then the sky's the limit from that point on. Now you are actually, as you said, in Canada now. The technology is going to be available worldwide, I'm assuming, or to all surgical entities,
Well,
whatever they are.
eventually, yes, that's the plan. but
Right.
but we sort of have to tackle, one thing at a time.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we're still waiting for the day where the world can kind of get together and harmonize marketing regulations for medical technology. That day seems very, very far away. Right now, the U.S. is certainly the biggest market, and it's a very critical proving ground. And so we've chosen to really focus on FDA approval as kind of the first big hill to climb. Shortly thereafter, the goal would be to continue to expand access internationally. The rest of North America, Europe, Latin America, Asia, and beyond. So.
Well, the only reason I ask is, I mean, when you mentioned Vienna, and and I figured maybe
Yep.
since they already experienced it over in Europe, and that's going to be potentially something that's going to get viral enough that there will be some nice support for it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No, definitely.
And so now, as you pursue in the U.S., now my personal expertise is the payer side and the insurance world, and specifically government programs.
Yep.
And so we talk about Medicare, Medicaid. Now,
Yep.
I know past the FDA approvals and stuff. Now you have to get it through, some of these programs to incorporate this as a covered benefit, through their systems. Yep. And programs. Have you even tested that water yet, or not yet?
Yeah. So again, not directly. I mean, we've been working with our potential partner on some of these questions, and I think what's fairly clear is that, at least for brain tumors, there is room to have this fit under existing DRG codes. So there is a DRG, well, actually a set of DRGs that covers brain tumors. We've looked fairly carefully at the reimbursement rates for those DRGs and the associated costs. And so we have a pretty good idea of the economics surrounding that particular group of patients. We think we can sort of squeeze this in there at the cost that we have in mind, at least initially. And we're pretty certain that, over the immediate post-market period, we'll be able to build up the actual real world evidence that we would need to either expand the rate of coverage for those DRGs, or actually maybe even have an additional code for the use of our device. That's not in the immediate plans, but it would certainly make sense over the sort of medium term.
Well, I mean, private pay is one thing, as we know, but then you're talking in the U.S., for example, there's a nice amount of seniors, and then the Medicare, and so.
And certainly, I mean, the first indication that we're going after, which would be high grade glioma, is most common kind of in the late 60s, early 70s population. So this is right up Medicare's alley. Sorry, it's the Canadian.
It's all good. I got you.
But so it's definitely something we're very aware of, and working quite a bit to understand how we're going to use that going forward.
Thank you. One question, I'm almost backtracked a little bit. It's something that just kind of clicked in my mind right now. So we've established the cost and the it's not very crazy, and it could be absorbed by the current reimbursement systems. We've established the technology need and the ability to be really making a difference. Is the technology going to make a difference in terms of, let's say, the surgical span? I mean, if someone goes in surgery, does this help in reducing the time on the table? For example, and the surgeons will have less time figuring out.
So that's an interesting question. I mean, we know how expensive OR time is, and,
I know.
and it's a very valuable resource. The reality is it's actually likely going to extend the time of the procedure. But we've certainly designed the system to ensure that takes as little time as possible. The results are very rapid, but because the surgeon now has this tool, they are able to pursue additional cancer in areas that they otherwise wouldn't have probably paid that much attention to. Just despite the potential for real clinical value. So the reality is, yeah, they are likely going to take more time investigating some of these marginal areas that they otherwise wouldn't have done. But the scale of time we're talking about is, extra minutes. You can do a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter area in about 30 seconds if you want to, you may take a few points, see nothing there, and decide to move on to somewhere else. So it really will depend on the case. The longest we had one case during one of our studies that was a low-grade glioma, and this was in a 22-year-old, where this was actually a fairly early case in our development. It was one of the sort of cases where we realized what this thing could really do. And it was part of a small double-blinded study. So the surgeon didn't know that they were going to get our system when he did the surgery. So he did his preoperative plan. He removed the area of the tumor that was, visible on the MRI. And then it turned out that this patient was part of the active arm of the study. So then we wheeled in the system, and the surgeon was able to then use the system to try to extend the surgery. And what he actually did was he started kind of at the midline, the center of the brain. He took a first reading, and that came back as clean, because this was all in an area where there was no indication of tumor on the MRI. First reading came back clean, but then the next 5 readings in a row, as he worked his way back out, towards the edge, all came back showing cancer, 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 cancer. And he was like, oh my gosh, so I really have to clean this up. So he started removing more tissue. He kept investigating. It kept showing cancer, cancer, cancer. And he kept moving out until he, got to an area, sort of a face of the tissue where it all came back clean. We kept all that tissue, so we were able to confirm these results with pathology. And what he did was he actually wound up removing an extra 8.5 grams of tissue. So it was almost double the original size of the tumor. And all in the pathology, it all came back as invaded with cancer. None of it was showing up on MRI. And that's actually not that uncommon in low-grade gliomas. But that basically almost doubled the extent of the surgery. And it only took an extra 25 minutes. Well, so we didn't really add a lot of additional time to that portion of the procedure. And so it's very time efficient. But the reality is we're letting the surgeon do more. And that's obviously going to take more time. So.
Well, from someone sitting on this side, what I'm hearing right now is that actually, yes, it gave him 25 more minutes or 20 minutes more, but probably 2 surgeries avoided, because that person could have come back, for worse, and another surgery.
Yeah, and not only that, it's difficult to know specifically in that case if we did avoid additional surgery, although I do know that person has not come back for a second surgery yet. But that person, there was a fairly young patient. It was in his 20s. I can't remember exactly how old he was, but they were able to forego radiation. And had very less aggressive chemo treatment. So we were actually able to reduce the burden of care on the adjuvant treatments, and so the extra 25 minutes paid off in a huge way. And so it's these types of trade-offs that we're able to really push the envelope on. So.
Well, again, you mentioned early on this is at the molecule level, right? And so it's not going to be, if it's not massive enough, you're not going to see it in the standard MRI. So unless you read it and you know where it is, and to your point, 8 extra grams, that's a lot of cells that you have to remove, and that's a lot of cells that could potentially just increase in size again and affect a different section of that brain, and then we have issues, right? And then definitely more surgery, and to your point, more chemo, radiation, and healthcare cost. So the point I'm trying to make is that really, while the timing could be a little extra, the real result is actually much value. There's more value to it.
100%. Yes. So yeah. No, and that's definitely what we strive to deliver.
Well, it sounds like it's happening, and you've done it, and you'll do it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a success, and it's going to be the next thing. By the way, like every technology, this is only going to get better from here. So 20 minutes, we'll go to 10 and hopefully to 5. And then who knows, it will be like almost instant with the AI also advancing. I mean, there's going to be a lot more to this. So
Yeah, and I mean, we have a lot of ideas, both on sort of on the back end technology, but also future applications. There's a long way that this can go, and the beauty of it is because it's optically based and the probes are sort of fiber based. It's fairly straightforward to integrate these things into all kinds of platforms and all kinds of other technologies. So we're really trying to enable as much data driven procedures as possible. So.
Well, AI is the next thing, right? I mean, it's happening, it's real. And I have to say, I mean, you have 20 engineers. I mean, that's a lot of brilliant minds working towards the innovation of this and the improvement of it. So I have no doubt, I know everybody's listening can be very comfortable that this is really happening and it's going to just change lives. So
fantastic.
so Chris, anything else you want to share with us in terms of, the company, the any additional benefits, anything else that you'd like to share with our audiences right now?
No, I think we've done a really good job of covering most of it. I would say, please, anybody who's interested, feel free to reach out to us. You can, our contact info is at revealsurgical.com. Happy to answer questions. Watch this space. We have a lot of really exciting things coming up. There's, hopefully we're going to be making very big strides in the brain tumor space and over the next year, but we've got a lot of other things going on, and we're excited to start to announce, progress in these other areas. Hopefully also over the next year. So there's a lot going on, and we're also hiring. So if anybody's interested, check out our LinkedIn posts and see our open positions. There's lots of room if you think this is up your alley. We've got lots of needs on the developer side, on QA, manufacturing. We're growing the team like gangbusters. So please feel free to reach out.
Well, as a matter of fact, thank you, Chris, for sharing that, because I'll have the link in the description of the show, and maybe we can have also the postings, whatever, so people can reach out. Sounds like exciting, and I'm assuming they can be from, not necessarily in Canada, they could be from the US or other parts of the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. No, we've I gotta tell you, we keep our immigration lawyers very, very busy. we've brought in team members from all over the world, and Montreal, it's a little chilly. And right now the COVID situation is not great, but that should clear up in a few weeks. And it is a very, very fun city to live in. And I would encourage anybody who has any interest to really give us a close look. It could be a fun place to work, fun place to live, and to have a chance to really make a difference in patients' lives.
It is a beautiful city. I've been there. I love it. As a matter of fact, we were planning to go back this last, year, but because of the COVID stuff and the shutdown and quarantine rules, we didn't. So I'm looking forward to, as soon as everything reopens back, and hopefully soon enough, we'll go back when it's a little warmer, because I know it's a little
warmer. But I gotta tell you, I mean, if you can get over the cold, winter can be the best time to be here. I mean, it's if you just got to choose to love it, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, people get out all the time. There's skiing on a mountain right in the middle of the city. There's skating everywhere. We have a giant like what they call igloo fest, so DJs on the old port, and minus 20-degree weather, and there's a lot of fun ways to stay warm. So.
Well, listen, that's great. Well, can I ask you a question, though?
Sure.
Speaking of just though, did COVID affect you guys in terms of your progress? And because I know that the last 2 years have been challenging. So
it's no, it has certainly been challenging for us. I mean, the impacts have largely been indirect. But and we're I don't know if this is lucky, but the reality is a lot of the procedures that we work on, they're not optional procedures, right? They're very much the last on the list to get bumped. But our ability to get new hospitals going and sort of get new studies up and running and working through the administrative part with hospitals in the middle of COVID has certainly been very challenging. And so it's slowed a lot of things down, but hasn't stopped anything. We've kind of worked through those challenges, and we're sort of seeing slowdowns across the board. But no, we've been able to overcome that and kind of move through and keep things more or less on track. So it's been a lot harder than I thought it was going to be pretty hard going into this. a global pandemic was not high on my list of things I expected to happen. It definitely presented a lot of unique challenges, but we've overcome them. We've been able to shift a lot of work, online, and set up remote access to a lot of our R&D systems in our offices, so that people can continue to do their development work and do their testing remotely. And so, with the tech that we have and the tools that are available, we're able to keep a lot of things moving, even at the height of the pandemic. So it's wasn't what we originally planned on doing. I gotta say, it was a real sort of kick in the teeth, because we had literally just moved into our new offices in December of 2019. Brand new facility. We had built spaces for all our new team members, our own labs, our own manufacturing facility. We just started to move furniture in, and then we had to send everybody home. So it was, still to this day, I mean, I think I just finished hanging posters in the boardroom 2 months ago. So yeah, it was not what we originally envisioned, but you adapt and you move forward, and it's you find ways to kind of keep the team together and keep them inspired and keep them excited. It's not every day you get a chance to do this kind of work. So, keeping the excitement level pretty high, that's been pretty easy. So,
These are words spoken as a true CEO and a leader. And you know what? What doesn't hurt you makes you stronger. Is that how it's said? Decision.
For sure.
And you know what? If you made it throughout this, you can make it through anything else. And I think you can do better going forward, and you'll be ready for anything else that can come up.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like to think so.
You're fine. Well, listen, first of all, you guys are doing awesome here, and you've been doing great. And listen, we're looking forward to the success of, the whole program and your procedure, the tools. Maybe in a couple of years, when it's all out there, we'll do a comeback and we can talk about the lounge, and maybe we'll go maybe I'll come to you and we'll do a live, production on it.
Yeah, for sure.
As maybe a surgery is really under, way, and we can show the particulars of it.
I'm not sure if you're gonna, the visuals are pretty striking, let me tell you, having sat through a number of these procedures, but
I'm sure.
It's
well, the results, maybe not the real intricate stuff, but maybe just the light stuff, like before, the after, the result, whatever.
Like I said, our demo is incredibly underwhelming, and I'd be very happy to share it with you.
Yeah, listen, I mean, we are the health channel, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
we can take it.
That would be amazing. That would be a lot of fun.
Well, listen, definitely wish you all the success. And we've spent almost an hour going over this, and we covered a lot of grounds, and thank you for really breaking it down, sharing with us all some the facts and statistics, and really it's exciting.
No, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. It's definitely been a great conversation, and happy to do a follow-up or talk again anytime you want.
We'll do, definitely. I'm going to hold you to that one, and then I'll give you some time to get through the FDA and all that stuff, and then we'll catch up again.
Well, yeah, we hope to have a lot of good news to share over the next year.
Yes. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time, again, wish you all the best.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for following with us, watching on the iHealth channel, listening on iHealth Radio. Hurricane H here. We'll be talking soon. Different show, different guest, different topic. Ciao for now. Bye-bye.